What's going on? Kambosos, who's he going to fight next? Everybody's making the assumption that, hey, it must be Devin Haney. And they believe that just due to the fact that so many people are out of the equation now. You have Gervonta Tank Davis, who's, if you're not trying to see things his way, he ain't trying to deal with you. And he doesn't have to, because he pretty much, when it comes to money made, when it comes to gates, when it comes to pay-per-views, he's the head honcho. So he could care less about what you're doing. And right now, we know that he's fighting Rolly, I believe, in June. Lomachenko, we know the things that's going on in his country. And, at first he escaped to what was it? He escaped, I forget what country he had escaped to, Greece or something like that. Pressure got to him. People asking, what you doing in Greece on that beach? And he got up and he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's out there with his people, fighting for their freedom. And so, people kind of, and then Ryan Garcia has a match already set up. So people are figuring like, hey, the only person left is Devin Haney. So Devin Haney must be the guy. They kind of feel like, hey, the leverage that kambosos had is gone now. So what's he going to do? He has no choice but to fight Devin Haney. And Devin Haney his team doesn't even have to go as hardcore as they did before when it came to the finances, because this is stretched out so far. But the reality is that's not necessarily the case. We heard from Robert Garcia that DeBella had called him by accident thinking he was the Garcia from Golden Boy, and they were talking about a 2-fight deal, a situation where kambosos would fight whoever, and Ryan Garcia fights the guy that he's fighting, and if they both win, then both of them having a fight in Australia. That was the plan. So that could be the plan, because we heard that Eddie Hearn's no longer talking to DeBella, and DAZN is talking directly to them. But just because he's talking directly to them doesn't mean he's talking about Devin Haney. Because the reality is, even if they were speaking directly to them, they still would have to speak with Eddie Hearn, because of obviously also he works directly with Devin Haney. So I'm figuring what they could be actually talking about is not necessarily kambosos setting up a fight with Devin Haney, but a fight of maybe a multi-fight deal, like a 2-fight deal, where kambosos does fight somebody else in June or whenever he's fighting. In a homecoming, Ryan Garcia fights who he's fighting, and then they do a fight in Australia, which works out for DAZN because Ryan Garcia signed to DAZN. So if he wins those belts, they're in a good space. It's somebody that is tied to them, that's tethered completely to them contractually, and they're good, through Golden Boy, and they're fine. They can really ride that wave because they believe that his potential is very, very high. Because people always say, oh, Devin is known more than Ryan Garcia and this and that. Well, that might be the case, but they believe his potential is higher. So, and he's cheaper, substantially cheaper. You could pay that man probably hundreds of thousands of dollars instead of the $2 or $3 million you got to pay Devin Haney right now that he's getting paid. So, and also if kambosos wins, cool. Kambosos wins. You have another fight in Australia with kambosos. If he wins again, then maybe you can continue that relationship with him, just because they're trying to build up Australia. DAZN has I think they already had an event in Australia, and they want to build up that market, and they want to get people signing up from that market. So having 2 big fights in Australia does that for them. And then if kambosos, let's say, loses to Ryan Garcia, and you have obviously, you have that rematch, now you got 3 matches. Well, now you got 3 events in Australia that way you can pique the interest of those of the potential subscribers for DAZN. So it just works better for them, instead of Devin Haney going there one time, beating him. Even if you have a rematch, you beat him again, cool. You got all the belts, now what are you going to do next? Scatter the belts. Because he only wants to fight probably 1-2 more times in that weight class. So he scatters the belts, and then what? So he did all that work, paid all that money to get all these belts, and then for what? And then he's moving up, and then he moves up to 140 pounds, and he has the same exact issues as he has at 135 pounds as it pertains to getting fights. It's going to be the same issue. Nothing's going to change. So we kind of got to just sit back and see what happens, but we can't just make the assumption that, kambosos is in this tight spot, because he could have a whole different plan set up right now. Not to mention, he can also go fight another lesser tier fighter one time. Then after that, probably fight Gervonta Tank Davis after that, because that's going to be ordered anyway from the WBA. As soon as his Rolly fight is done, WBA is going to order that fight. They're going to order the fight between those two in order to, because they're consolidating all their belts. And that's going to be the last fight, to completely consolidate that division. So that could be something that, they could be planning for the future as well. I wouldn't be shocked if kambosos didn't fight on DAZN at all and didn't fight any of them and just fought, let's say, a fight on Probellum or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if something of that nature happened as well. So, but this whole assumption that, okay, he has no choice but to fight Devin Haney, I think that's off base. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight happened. I wouldn't be surprised if DAZN also is looking at, hey, is that also a potential fight that we can do, if we can get the numbers in a space where it makes sense for us, because that's still going to be 2 fights that they get to do in Australia with Devin Haney as well. That's still 2 fights, long as Devin Haney is willing to go to Australia twice. But then it also comes, how much are you going to have to pay Devin Haney? How much is he going to be willing to take? Is he going to be okay with taking? Is he going to be willing to take if he has to take only $1 million that one fight and then fight again in Australia and only take $1 million, 1.5 again? If it's a multi-fight deal, because then he's going to have to agree when it comes to the finances as well. And if you're doing something like that, again, it's easier to do that with Ryan Garcia. Instead of talking 5-6 million, you're probably talking 2 million to get that fight done. As far as the DAZN side, let's say the Ryan Garcia side or the Devin Haney side, it's millions of dollars cheaper. Because people can say whatever the hell they want to say. Devin Haney isn't going over there to Australia to fight for $500,000 or for $600,000. He's not going to do that. He'll just move up. It'd be moronic for him to do something like that and put himself into that type of space and something that's not going to propel your career anyway. You fight, like I've always said, you're an American fighter, you fight under the zone, you're not going to progress in your career. It's not happening. You're with Eddie Hearn. His style of promoting, that works in the UK. It does not work in the United States. Okay? It does not work in the United States. We've seen with everybody he's worked with, all the way up to Canelo. Canelo's fights, Canelo on DAZN has had fights that gate-wise have been less than Gervonta Tank Davis's. Substantially. He's had gates that sold less than Gervonta Tank Davis. Even his biggest fight was with Billy Joe Saunders. That was a $9 million gate against Billy Joe Saunders. He goes fights Caleb Plant, they do 18. His biggest viewership, I think, was 600,000 concurrent views on DAZN. He does 800,000 plus pay-per-views on Showtime. And that's the biggest guy that's there. And like when you see him fight Bevo, his gate is going to drop dramatically. And they ain't selling no pay-per-views like that. That's going to be, this is going to be a loss in the tens of millions for DAZN. But, whatever. They want to be moronic. I mean, it is what it is. Go get your money. Canelo, go get your money. I mean, it is what it is. Even though you could have made more money taking that big Showtime deal. But, that put to the side, don't just make the assumption that kambosos is caught up in some kind of corner where he can't do anything, where he's stuck, because the moves they might end up making probably might have not had anything to do with Devin Haney to begin with. But we'll see how everything goes. But, yes, he definitely could still get the fight, though, 100%. But even with now, with these certain options not necessarily in the in the picture anymore, he still has options of things that he can do that does not involve Devin Haney. So it's one of them situations you kind of got to sit back and see what happens at the end of the day. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.